Hello, everyone. I'm Dominique Johnson-Lindsay, and welcome to the Active Listener Podcast by Lightspeed. For the past 3 decades, Lightspeed has journeyed with educators and tech experts across school districts. With our Active Listener Podcast, we are bringing the stories and experiences of our customers, education experts, and our own team members on how listening is foundational to education. Tune in as we amplify these vital voices and understand more about the people shaping the future of education. We hope every podcast listen will be a learning opportunity with Active Listener. Thank you, everyone, for joining another episode of the Active Listener Podcast. I'm super excited to be here today. I'm here with John McDonald. So if you don't know him, he has this really amazing background that's all about safety. So he is the Chief Operating Officer of the Council for School Safety Leadership. He spent 14 years in Colorado doing safety, kind of widely known as the architect for post-Columbine emergency response planning. He pretty much helps everyone nationwide either prepare or recover from tragedy, which is really important, unfortunately. And ultimately, you've won a lot of national awards for leadership in public safety and brings that experience to the broader community, not only through speaking engagements, but also just through the nonprofit work that you do. So did I leave anything out?
I think you covered most of it.
Okay, perfect. So obviously today I wanted to talk to you because Lightspeed has kind of made its entrance into the safety space. And so getting here and getting comfortable is kind of understanding more about the landscape. We know what we hear on the news all the time or what we're hearing, in congressional meetings or that kind of thing. But overall, I feel like I wanted to bring a safety conversation to the podcast and make it digestible for people. So I kind of want to start off at the top, and that is, school safety didn't start with school shootings. That's kind of how we feel sometimes, like, oh my God, there's another school shooting. What do you feel about the evolution of school safety as it's kind of transitioned from problems that we felt were more minor to now school shooting?
Well, the modern era of school safety really started about 29 years ago. And that modern era of school safety started before Columbine. It started with Paducah, Jonesboro, Pearl, Mississippi, Springfield. There were school shootings 2 to 3 years previous to Columbine that really set a tone for where we're at today. What happened, though, is Columbine became that national epicenter tragedy that we all watched, we all saw live. And that changed the world because for the first time, a nation felt like our kids may not be safe in schools. And in the 26 years since the Columbine tragedy, we've been trying to figure out how to stop the violence. And we've struggled to do it. We've made a lot of mistakes along the way. There's been a lot of headway, which is great. But this thing called school safety is now about a $4 to $5 billion a year industry, an industry surrounding how to protect kids. And, there's a lot of great organizations out there doing good work. There's some fly-by-night outfits out there doing some questionable work. There's for-profit corporations that are doing this for the right reasons, and I love that. And then there's some predatory organizations, businesses out there that sweep in after a tragedy and say, hey, we have the product that'll save your life. So schools have to navigate all of this, and we've got to try and figure out what works for us, what works in our environment. Frankly, what can we do that adds value to keeping kids safe so they become the good learners they need to be? Because what we know to be true is that students that feel safe are better educated. They're better learners. They have higher test scores, better graduation rates. School safety is foundational to good quality education. So that's the baseline. We start there. We can build on that.
Absolutely. And I think for many people in the schools, I'm kind of speaking loosely, I'm not in a district, but it's almost not understanding where to start. Obviously, people always kind of quote this thing that's saying, when a crisis happens, like you're already behind. And that is in some ways true, but also what do you do to build a culture of safety and being proactive? Like, what do you kind of advise people just at the top level about how they get started making sure that they're doing the right things?
I tell you what, that's the most important question I've been asked in a very long time. And there's a really simple answer to it. If you want to create a safe school environment, the very best thing that you can do is provide kids with kind, caring, trusted adults in their school. Every student that has a connection to a trusted adult is a better student, and they have better connections. They have better opportunity. They feel safer. They feel empowered. And when those students have a connection to a trusted adult, they tell us stuff that we didn't even know was happening in the school. And for the adult in the school, that's intel. We love intel because intel gives us opportunity to engage, to stop behavior, to fix a problem before it ever becomes a crisis. So if you want to do something, the first thing you do is build a climate and culture, a positive climate and culture of learning and safety. And everything builds on that. And it doesn't cost a dime. It doesn't cost a one dime to build a positive climate and culture. Now, it's exhausting, but you're not working at a school if you hate kids. You're working at a school because you really believe in kids and you believe in the opportunity and the hope for them. Well, then put it into play and be that trusted adult those kids need. And you may not connect with every student, but there will be somebody in the building that can connect with that student. And we need to find those connections. If we do that, then we build on that. And we look curbside to classroom. I look at curbside to classroom from a safety perspective. From the time they hit our curb to the time they get in the classroom to the time they go home and leave our curb, what can we do to provide safe school environments? And, people talk a lot about you don't want it to look like a prison. You don't want it to be a fortress. You want a kind, welcoming environment. Well, I submit to you that you can lock the doors, keep the doors secured, have cameras, have all sorts of sensors going on, access control, good active shooter protocols. But if you're friendly and kind and trusted adult with your kids, then you know what? It doesn't matter what your school looks like. It just matters that it's safe and secure, and you're providing your kids this trusted adult connection. So they're not, a fortress building and welcoming environment, they're not mutually exclusive of each other. They work together. And that's the greatest opportunity we have where, it's okay to say to parents, you got to buzz in to get in. You got to tell us who you are before we open the door for you. We can do that in a nice way. We don't have to be rude or mean about it. And when you do it in a nice way and you explain to parents why we're protecting their kids, why we're implementing all these practices and protocols and technological advances and why we're so focused on safety, they get it because their kid's the most important thing in their life. And they want those kids to come home as happy and healthy as when they sent them to us. And that, frankly, is our duty.
I love the way you described that. And I think oftentimes in this conversation, the point that you're making is lost because, again, you said they're not mutually exclusive. They can work together. And I think people discount how much it feels better to understand what's happening in that environment that feels like a fortress, as it mirrors the safety protocols that we need to have every day. I totally get that. It brings up something else though. So a lot of times we think about this, we think about it from the perspective of the adult. Something that always comes up for me is the mindlessness of kids practicing drills. And that is because, of course, I've been a kid. I've been in school. We practice these drills all the time. It's like, I don't want to do this, or I don't care about this. I'm not really thinking of it. So how do we also communicate to the children in our school the value of what it is that they're doing without that kind of like mindlessness creeping in when we're doing drills or just following safety protocol?
It's a great question, and I'll tell you the secret answer to this. Typically, when most school districts or schools do a lockdown drill, they walk down a hallway, they shake a door, they make sure it's locked, they look in the classroom, and then they go on to the next room. If you do that, it's going to be a failure. It's a failure for you, and it's a failure for your kids and your staff. In 2010, the school district in Jefferson County, Colorado, that I was the executive director in, we had our third school shooting. Now, it's just down the street from Columbine High School. Columbine is huge in our district. Every decision I made for 14 years went back to the Columbine tragedy, the lessons learned. And so when we had our third school shooting in the suburban district, I was surrounded by several hundred kids in the aftermath of that a couple of days later when we got back to school. And they demanded to know what I was going to do to protect them. Great question. And my promise to them that I'm proud to say I upheld for 12 years after that promise was that we will train all of our kids on what it really means to be in an environment where you have to protect yourself, protect the friends around you, keep each other safe. And we went into 4,800 classrooms every semester during lockdown drills. And we engaged with the kids and the staff, and we talked strategies. And we did it very quickly, but we had a whole list, and my whole team would go into a school. And we would do the lockdown drill, 157 schools in the first semester of the school year, 4,800 classrooms. We went into every classroom every year. We had conversations with the kids and the teachers about what they were supposed to do, what the strategies were for success and survival. We had open, honest dialogue, and we answered questions from kids. Now, typically, we could only take about 3 questions per classroom because you could be there all day. But kids want to know, what should I do if I'm in a restroom? What should I do if I'm on the playground? What do I do if I'm in the hallway? And we would answer these questions, but one of the conversation pieces we had with the kids is, this drill that you're doing today is the most important drill of your entire life because you don't know about tomorrow. And this drill isn't just about your safety in school. It's about your safety at the mall, at the church, at the movie theater, in your home. And we tied all of those strategies and wrapped it up into a package where all of our people could train the same consistent message. And that became really important because we trained starting at 3 years old in preschool, all the way through high school, age-appropriate conversations. I don't talk to a 3-year-old like I talk to a 16-year-old. So we had different strategies for our kids, but we built on that. So when a preschooler went to kindergarten, when a kindergartner went to 3rd grade, when a 3rd grader went to 6th grade, it all evolved. And we trained 86,000 kids a year in that practice. And I'm really proud of that because what we saw when we started this, we had the kids do a Make Your Voice Heard survey that they've been doing for years. And the question was, do I feel safe in schools? When we started this, 67% of the kids said they felt safe. At the end of it, 92% of the kids said they felt safe 8 years later. That's success. That's opportunity. So when I go around the country and people ask me to come in and show them how to do an emergency drill, I show them our way, which is let's go in the classroom and talk to the kids. And they're always shocked by this because we're taking educational time away. Well, I submit to you that one crisis in your school is going to take a lot more educational time away from you than we're going to take by doing a drill. We got it down to about 45 minutes per school. It took us a while to figure that out, but I would take the principal with me. And if they had a school resource officer, I'd take them with me. And we'd all walk together. I want the principal linked at my hip. So when I'm having conversations, the principal hears it and he adds credibility to what we're saying because the kids see the principal. And we're a partner in this. And that is so essential.
That makes total sense. And I love the ideal of that because we know it is necessary. And again, those same threads that we know are really important, that's kind of what you're speaking to. We all like to be communicated to. Children are not exempt from wanting to be heard. That's our thing. So I get it.
And here's the thing. We hear all over the country these drills are traumatizing for kids. And my response is, why? Change that from traumatizing to empowering. And I've heard from more parents over the years who've said, what you taught my kids made a difference in this environment or that environment. And I'm really proud of that because, in fact, I'll tell you a quick funny story. I'm in line at In-N-Out Burger. I love In-N-Out Burger. I'm in line at In-N-Out Burger in Denver, where I spent 35 years of my career before I retired and moved to Missouri. And I'm talking to my wife, and I drive up, and the girl taking my order looks at me, and she says, "Oh, my God, you're the lockdown guy." I said, "What?" She said, "You're the lockdown guy. You used to come into my school all the time and teach us how to do lockdowns." And my wife was laughing at me. And I'm like, I'll take that lockdown guy moniker. I'm okay with that. So I get to the other drive up, and there's three workers from the In-N-Out Burger hanging out the drive up and the pickup window going, it's the lockdown guy, because they had evidently radioed ahead or told them. And I thought, what are the chances? I mean, you don't know what they're going to remember. But I'll tell you what, if they remember a couple things we trained them on when they were younger, and they can take that through life, I'm proud of that because, the threat of our time, this active shooter issue that continues across this country, most of the good learning that's occurring and how people respond starts in K-12 education. It starts in our public schools, where we are training the kids on what to do, and then they're going out in life and they're able to train other people. And we're good. I'm thrilled with that. Good people doing good work all over the country.
I love that. So it kind of leads me to another point, though, and that is eventually you came out of the school system to do what you're doing today. So talk to me about that transition and why it was really important for you to continue to basically do the work that you were doing, but basically to spread it out nationwide.
Well, I got to be honest. After 14 years in Jeffco schools, I was tired. I was worn out. I had a long, good 35-year career, but I was on call 24 hours a day. And any school safety director knows what I'm talking about. It's really exhausting. And I had an opportunity to come to work for the Missouri School Boards Association. They operate the only statewide school safety resource center in the country that's non-government owned. So I retired and came to work for them the next day. I failed at retirement. They offered me an opportunity to lead a program called the Council for School Safety Leadership. And what we do is we work with school districts around the country that have experienced crisis and tragedy. And we help them respond or recover and provide them guidance through our network, and have a tremendous network built up over many years of experts around the country that we can call on that can quickly respond and help. Because really it's about providing help and hope. And what everybody needs to understand is that in a tragedy, the first 5 minutes, the first 5 hours, and the first 5 days will define your next 5 years. So the decisions that you make are absolutely critical. And what I realized is that for years we've been training our kids. We train our preschoolers, our elementary, middle school, and high schoolers. We train our staff, our principals, on how to work through tragedy and crisis, how to lock down, how to evacuate, how to shelter. We train them in all these emergency protocols. But you know who we don't train? We don't train our leaders. We don't train our district leadership teams on how to respond to crisis and what their decision points should be, what their roles and responsibilities are. And nobody trains school boards. School boards oversee the governance, and they have the financial responsibility for the district, yet nobody's talking to them about what do you do in a crisis? What's your role in a tragedy? So I started thinking, look, let's start compressing distance and time between our kids and our leaders, right? So now what we're doing is we're pushing down and pushing up, let everybody else keep training the kids like we have been for years. But now let's start training leaders around the country on their roles, their responsibilities for the Essential Five. In fact, we're writing the book here that'll be out very soon called The Essential Five. And that is those decision points in the first 5 minutes, 5 hours, and 5 days that define your next 5 years. And you get four things with tragedy. You get loss of life, lost trust, litigation, and legislation. And it is a painful time for schools. Let's start fixing that problem. And let's shift that paradigm. So now, in addition to the Council for School Safety Leadership, I'm also running Missouri Center for Education Safety. So I'm wearing two hats, having a blast doing it. It's good work. And I'm taking all those lessons that I learned on the front lines, protecting kids, and now we're just translating that to teaching our leaders how to keep schools safe, because at the end of the day, leaders are the ones that keep schools safe.
Absolutely. And that's something that we've definitely found as we've been integrating more into the safety space is who is involved in the conversations as it revolves around safety. Obviously, Lightspeed, we're an instructional audio company. So our main focus has always been on just communication. We want that teacher to student communication. And, for us, we saw this opportunity to evolve that communication beyond, just in the classroom by utilizing our microphone to be able to send out those signals. Because of this, we've kind of opened up the landscape of what does safety technology look like? And so when you bring up talking to district leaders, that's kind of interesting because a lot of the safety technology decisions, whether people are going to have cameras, whether they're going to have metal detectors, and now even things like our solutions, come down to whether district leadership kind of buys into the idea of the safety, safety technology being beneficial. So kind of tell me from your perspective as a person not in a district, how do you advise people on what makes sense for them to add to their safety stack when it comes to technology?
So the intersection of technology and school safety is something that I think is absolutely essential. In fact, I'll share this with you. I believe in the next 5 years that the number one way that we will receive threats is through AI in schools. And we're not prepared for it today, but it's coming. Are we prepared for it? So, the technology that you use and that you implement in schools, here's where it's so unique and what I really love about it. Typically, technology fits for one group, one entity. Maybe it fits for school safety. Technology fits for curriculum. Technology may fit for administration. Your technology is really the intersection of school safety and education and good learning, because through your systems, I can partner now with the educational side and the curriculum side. I can partner with the special ed side. I can partner with the technology side and say, hey, instead of all of this funding coming out of my budget, let's split it amongst 3 or 4 different groups within the organization. We'll all share in the cost of this. And when we go to the school board and say, look, we found a solution that fits across the spectrum that's going to benefit safety and security, administration, curriculum, special ed. Holy cow. Now you got a board going, okay, we like this. Well, now we can see the benefit of this. And I think that's one of the unique opportunities about Lightspeed that a lot of other companies don't have. So, as a school district, what do you need? And what's going to give you the biggest return on investment? That ROI is critical because you're going to have to use this system for 5 to 7 years before you can afford to buy the next one, or technology changes so much that you just have to buy the next one because what you've got is no longer solution oriented. I'll give you an example. When I first started years ago, I still remember black and white CCTV surveillance, and you'd look at it and it looked like Bigfoot walking through the forest. You couldn't tell who was who. Now I can read writing on a piece of paper on the floor or a license plate from a block away. There's a lot of stuff we can do that, technology has really changed and evolved. But I think the question is, what's the ROI? What do you really need? What are you missing? But if you can find a solution that fits for multiple departments within your organization, or cost sharing that's good use of taxpayer money. It reduces the stress on our individual budgets. And, we look like we're good stewards. And I love that. And it has a real, safety component. Count me in. So those are some of the conversations that I have with school districts. And, we never have money. Schools never have money. We're used to doing a lot with very little. And, good for everybody for being good managers of the budget and of the taxpayer money. But it's hard. So, spend wisely and make sure it's something that you're actually going to use. If you're implementing it, then do it with fidelity. And it's okay to brag about it to your community and say, hey, look what we just did to keep your kids safe. We're so excited about this. You don't have to give away the tactics. Just give away the exposure to new added technology that benefits students in multiple ways, and you'll look like a rock star.
I love it. And yes, that is definitely what we are trying to do. That's the message that we're hoping to send. And I love hearing about that from you, because obviously, as much as you can love our solution, you don't sell it. I think there's just something good about finding people that find our solution valuable, because again, being in this new space for us, people are like, well, don't you do this? And it's like, yes, we do, but we want to do more, because I think the lane for communication, especially when it comes to emergency situations, is so important. When you talk about those first 5 seconds, I think the ability for us to be involved in that, and so a teacher can press a button and get help and have that like two-way communication, that's so important for us. So I'm hoping as people are purchasing our solutions, because obviously it's still new, that they are really truly getting that value. And we hope they never have to use it for emergency and can always use it for just curriculum purposes. But of course, when it needs to be there, it's good for us to say, you have that.
Well, I'll share this with you. We got more kids now tearing apart classrooms than ever before in K-12 education. Kids are exhibiting out of control behavior over the last couple of years, and classrooms are getting absolutely destroyed. The ability for a teacher to call for help immediately, to get support there fast, is really essential. To do that in a way that I don't want to say is covert, but not necessarily in your face about picking a phone up or walking over to a wall. Just quickly being able to press a button for help, it's a game changer. And so I'm a big fan of, and I'm not being paid by Lightspeed to say this, I'm a big fan of the technology, because the technology works, but the technology matters. And our single biggest failure in crisis situations is our failure of communication. Every single time, you can look back 26 years and see all the failures, and typically, I would say 99% of the time it goes back to failure of communication at some point. Well, where's the first communication point? It's from the teacher to the front office. It's from the front office to 911, or from 911 to the officer, or when the officer gets in the school, they can no longer communicate because their radios don't work. Or it's a failure of the school district to address the community and the parents and tell everybody what happened because we're not being transparent. Well, I'll tell you this, shame on all of it if we don't fix it. And all of this is fixable. So if you want to fix a solution, fix your communications problems, and then it changes everything.
Agree 100%. You touched on a lot of different things there, and I feel like that kind of leads into my last question for you, and that's more related to this. We know what has happened in the past. We're learning. That's kind of where we are presently. We kind of touched on this briefly. What do you think the future of school safety looks like? So we know we have AI being here, and that's kind of a part of it. But overall, like, how do you even hope that it evolves? Like, what do you hope is no longer a problem for school safety versus what do you feel like are the new things that will come in?
I think school safety is going to get more complicated with technology. I think the biggest challenge we have in school districts today is going to be trying to figure out what we need and what we don't need. What looks cool, but what really works. Those are two different things. And sometimes we look at the shiny object and say, ooh, run to the shiny object. I'd put up a stop sign and say, hold up for a minute. Let's talk about what we can do that doesn't cost anything. And then you fix that first. I'll give you an example. 2019-2020 school year, I started a program called Stop the Prop. And Stop the Prop was put into place because schools, for whatever reason, think they need to put a rock in the door. Every elementary school in the country thinks that they're going to suffocate if they don't have fresh air, so they put rocks in the door. I swear. Drives me nuts. So I started doing Stop the Prop. And I speak around the country, and other districts and other states have adopted it. I think I'm in more than 34 states now. And I just give the program away. My wife thinks I'm nuts. She said, you should trademark this thing and sold it. I'm like, stop the prop. All I care about is just stop the prop. So it doesn't cost $1 to close a door. It's free. Close the door. It doesn't cost $1 to be a kind, caring, trusted adult. Be a kind, caring, trusted adult. You know, there's a lot of stuff we can do. It doesn't cost $1 to build a positive climate and culture in a school. It just takes a lot of effort for all of it. So if you start there, start with the stuff that's free, and then start with the low-hanging fruit. What do you really need? Well, how about access control? How about good communications that allow your people to call for help? They can get rapid assistance from law enforcement. How about some really good quality cameras? Now, the cameras are interesting, right? Because we see cameras not so much for prevention, although they're doing more with prevention because they can identify some weapons. They can identify, through AI, somebody now that shouldn't be in the school that you've identified in your system. But traditionally, we use cameras for after-action review, for investigative purposes, and all of that is needed, and it's essential. But how are you using your cameras? Are you using them to your benefit? And they cost $100,000 or more, and sometimes nobody looks at them. But I will say this: I saw an interesting survey recently. The number one management tool that principals identified was cameras. Wow. Isn't that interesting? They're their number one management tool. Now, I've had principals tell me I can't be everywhere. I know one principal that would monitor a passing period on his cameras, and then he'd see kids doing something. He'd get on the intercom and he'd say, "You in the red, stop what you're doing." And you'd see these kids all looking to see where it's coming. It was great. But, how are you using your cameras? Are you using them wisely, and are they placed appropriately? Here's the thing. Dr. John Nicoletti did an algorithm study of active shooters. and found that 76% of them walk in your front door. Maybe a secure vestibule is a really good idea. Maybe window film is a really good idea. Maybe just keeping your door locked is a really good idea. There's a lot of stuff that we can do to keep that bad thing from ever entering the school. Well, we should do it. And I think sometimes it's really just having the conversation and breaking down what do we need and what don't we have, or what are we doing really well that we don't need to spend money on today, or what's a minimal investment that gets us to a better place than we are right now. And then you can look at your capital, funding needs and make decisions for other aspects of this. So there's a lot that goes into it. I think so much of this is a mindset. I really do believe it's mindset.
Agreed. I do too. It's so funny. As I've been more in the safety environment, hearing certain, safety officers speak, there are certain people that just stand out to me. And this is the mindset that kind of comes to the forefront, because it feels like a one-dimensional problem to people from the outside looking in. But anybody who is in the weeds of it all, it's so much beyond that. And it's like, we know we're not going to fix it all in one day. So it's very much, how do we kind of year over year, month over month, week over week, that kind of progress keeps us moving forward. And so, you talk about even your survey at the beginning with the change in how students feel. All of that matters. And I love that you're doing that work. I love that more schools are taking this work very seriously. And that, it's just growing. You saying it's growing is like, I definitely know. I feel like more and more people are standing up. I think at one point in time when I was in school, we kind of had like a school resource officer. Now people have full police departments, full security departments, full security, so I love that the direction is going, because I think it's equally as important as, the curriculum and instruction side of things and the administrator side of things. So I do love that.
Kids can't learn if they don't feel safe. And, here's a question I think we as a society better answer and better figure out. What's driving the desire to kill? What is driving the desire to attack? There was just a stabbing yesterday in a school where one student was killed and two were wounded. We've seen more stabbings in our schools in the last year than I'm aware of over the last decade. We continue to see mass shootings in our schools. What is driving this desire to kill amongst our kids and amongst our society? Unless we answer that question, we're going to be throwing money after money after money after this problem. People always ask me, was it a gun problem? It's an anger problem. It is fundamentally a problem when people want to kill, and they feel like this is their avenue to do what? You think you're going to make a statement to the world? Not anymore. You think you're going to, somehow get your voice heard? Not really. This is not the mechanism. Yet whatever is driving that desire, whatever's driving that mindset, we got to figure that out. You figure that out and we can win this thing. Otherwise, we're going to continue throwing money after money after money after solutions and problems and trying to figure this thing out. And 25 years later, we're going to look back and say, well, for 50 years, we've been trying to figure this out. We haven't done it. Well, shame on us as a society. We need to fix that problem. I tell school districts all over the country, if you don't have good relationships with your cops, fix it. Fix it today. And I tell cops all the time, if you don't have good relationships with your schools, fix it, and fix it today. There is no excuse for not having good relationships between schools and first responder agencies. And, there is something called trusted partners out there. Trusted partners are those businesses, those vendors that you can call. They're going to be there when you need help. Instead of trying to recreate the wheel, instead of trying to, buy something shiny from a, company or a business that is a little predatory, stay away from them. Go with the people that are going to be there. That's one of the reasons I agreed to come on this show today is because I've worked with Lightspeed in the past. I know what people are going to get. And if I'm going to put my face in front of something, I need to know it's a good return on investment for our kids at the end of the day. And it is. So, I don't know what's driving the anger. I'm not a psychologist or a sociologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I can just tell you that I spent my career preparing to respond to threats, and I've responded to 7 school shootings in my career, and I'm tired. So we need to fix it.
Agreed. I'm hopeful, but agreed. We do.
I've never lost my hope, but our kids deserve a safe school learning environment where they're free from threat, intimidation, harassment. And that is our job to provide that environment. Shame on us if we don't.
Absolutely. Okay. Before I first of all, I enjoy this so much. I love just hearing you speak. Oh my God, I love it. So before I let you go, I have my 2 favorite questions to ask on a podcast. I ask every guest before I let them go because it's the Active Listener podcast. So one is obviously talking about the impact of children. Like, we all just hope that kids have an environment where they are free to learn. Mm-hmm. So with that, we know there are lots of barriers in the classroom environment and school at large. And so I ask every guest, if you could remove one barrier from children at school, what would it be?
Oh, I think it goes back to that connection. I think we've lacked connection. We're so connected to this that we're no longer connected to each other. And it's the single biggest barrier I've seen. Not long ago, my daughter is now an attorney, but I remember when she was in high school at Columbine. One day I'm walking down the hall. I see her and 5 of her friends side by side, all texting. And I stopped them and I said, "Who are you texting? You're all together." And they said, "We're texting each other." And I said, "Why? Why aren't you talking?" And my daughter said, "Well, maybe I don't want one of them to know what I'm saying about her." I'm like, "Stop. Stop. Because you got to be connected here, right? We need to be connected as humans, not with technology." There is a movement in this country to get rid of cell phones in classrooms. And you know what? I'm okay with that. We want our kids to be able to tell us when there's something wrong. I get that. But our kids are on their devices so much that it's impacting the learning time in the classroom. And that's a problem. So let's fix that problem. It's fixable.
Agreed. I say this, probably 10 years ago, I wouldn't have agreed with you today. And my very last question is, what is your favorite sound in the whole world?
Laughter. I've seen a lot of sadness and a lot of trauma. I work with students, tens of thousands of students that have been impacted by school violence. I work with parents of murdered children. And I've seen a lot of sadness and a lot of trauma, and carry a lot of my own. So you get laughter, that's medicine right there. That's medicine.
Agreed. Yeah. That's probably the top answer. So I love it. I love it. Well, John, I do want to thank you so much for joining us today. This was so good. It's always good to talk to you. So anytime you want to come back,
I appreciate it. So I have a podcast, and I'm going to invite you on our podcast.
Okay.
If you've not listened to it yet, Deputy Chief, retired now, AJ DeAndrea, top tacticians, top SWAT leader in the country. AJ and I have a podcast called the Centurion's Path podcast. It is the path of the protector. And we have a lot of conversations about the duty to protect, the honor, the responsibility, and what it means to be a protector. And I love that Lightspeed is jumped into this fray of being protectors and taken on ownership, saying part of our role and responsibility as an organization should be about protecting kids. So, we're on, Spotify and Apple and YouTube and everything else. And I tell everybody, we're like, not really a big deal, but kind of a small big deal. And we're having a ton of fun doing it. And find anybody listening to this, find something in your life that you just enjoy doing that's different, and open yourself up to, new experiences. I would have never thought I'd be podcasting. And now we're heading to Canada next week to podcast from the Canadian Tactical Officers Association. They've invited us up there. So now we're international podcasters.
I love it.
Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of great stuff happening. I have a brand new program. I'm working with Brian Krause from CDW, AJ DeAndrea, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to take this national, and the three of us on stage, the educator, the cop, and the interpreter. And I am the interpreter because educators and cops, sometimes they don't talk to each other, and sometimes they don't understand each other's language. So they need an interpreter. And I'm the interpreter to help the educator understand what the cop is saying, and the cop to understand why the educator is saying what they're saying. And it'll be a lot of fun and a lot of laughter. And because it is, sometimes it's like this. And instead we want to make it like this. So. Good stuff happening.
I'm looking forward to it. So we have to be in touch.
Coming to a city near you. I think we're on like a 6-city tour already. So
okay.
Good stuff. But well, thanks for the opportunity to talk today, and I appreciate it. And anything I can do to help, give me a shout.
All right, anytime.
All right, have a good day.
You too. That's all for today's Active Listener. Thanks for tuning in. Share your comments on this episode on our Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn social media pages. You can visit our website at lightspeed-tech.com to learn more about our mission to ensure every student hears every word. And subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Until next time, let your listening be as active as your learning.